We see the impacts of climate change across different ecosystems, and we can measure more directly what has changed over time. For example, if we look at a coral reef ecosystem, we might use satellites to look at sea surface temperature to predict the likelihood of corals to bleach in that area. And then we can use drones, and we have done this. We use the drones to actually measure the amount of bleaching in that region as well on a much smaller scale. So having the satellite together with the drone really builds a bigger picture for prediction over large areas, but then really going in to check individual locations and to see if those predictions are true. In terms of climate change, we can also look at the impacts in all sorts of different ecosystems. So, climate change will also impact the availability of water and the converse of that, so drought. We can use satellites to look at regional conditions and soil moisture as well. And then bringing in the drones to look at local area impacts. So that could be tree health, it can be erosion related to the drought there as well. And bringing the two of those together, drones for the local scale and then satellite to really scale up the information so we're not just looking at very small areas. We consider how we can sequester carbon as part of the climate change challenge. There's benefits from having satellite and drone data. We can use optical satellites to look at really large area deforestation, for example, and what that impact on carbon storage and sequestration might be like, but then use the much closer up drone type data, particularly with LiDAR, which will give us really detailed three-dimensional biomass estimates of trees within a forest. So then we can start to really assess quantitatively how much carbon is lost or stored in those forests over time. By pairing the drone with the satellite, we can look at local areas and scale that to look over large areas. With the press around the wildfires in California, it's pertinent to look at the geospatial, the remote sensing capabilities at looking at wildfire and post-fire recovery in these ecosystems as well. So a lot of the time we can use the satellite data to look at the fire front itself. So we can use thermal imagery to be able to tell us where that is over large areas. We can also use drones that fly over fires to give us that information in a more detailed manner. Only through the official channels, of course, though, so we don't want any recreational pilots flying over emergency situations. One of the things we can do post wildfire is to look at recovery in the ecosystem over time. We can assess biomass with both optical drone data, but also LiDAR, which will give us three-dimensional models. And so then we can look at the regrowth there. Even going back in time as well, if we have the data available to us, either through looking through satellite archives or if we're monitoring sites over time with drones, we can even look at the fire fuel load. So having a look at how much dry vegetation there is, for example, which will help us understand those areas that might be at risk to fire in the future.